Hello and welcome to another edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. I'm your host, Justin Largen, and we are the show on the Serious Angler Network that is dedicated to all things kayak fishing. I've got something a little different planned this week. I know I said going into 2025, I was going to do a better job of putting out content. I was going to be more consistent. We were going to try and get you something every week. And in keeping with that, I've actually got a little bonus content this week. We've got a series of shows planned out. I'm actually trying to be a responsible adult, plan shows out, get guests lined up in advance, and not do this by the seat of my pants so much. But we had the first tournament of the Bassmaster Kayak Series for 2025 out on Lake Havasu, and I wanted to talk to the winner. So Drew was gracious enough to come on again. I think this is his third time now. I think that makes him the most frequent guest at this point. So not only has he won more Bassmaster Kayak Series tournaments than anybody, he has also been on our show more than anybody. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and bring Drew on, and we're going to talk about his tournament, what he did, how he added another big blue trophy to his case. All right, here he is, Mr. Drew Gregory, now a five-time winner. Have I got that right, Drew? Is it five Bassmaster wins?
For Bassmaster. I got five, blessed with five, man. It's crazy to say that. I've got five Bassmaster Kayak Series wins when the series has only been around since 2020. And they have what, six a year?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And I don't fish all six. Like last year I fished four. Year before, probably I think 4 or 5. It's nuts,
Dude,
man.
I'm not blowing smoke, but I remember, I guess last year, I think it was Armando I was talking
Mm-hmm.
to, and we were talking about who's the greatest kayak angler, and Russ had such a great year last year. We were talking about, and then we were talking about how Nolan or Ewing is sort of like taking over, like who's those two at the top. And I'll be honest, I was not thinking about you. And even though you won the championship last year, I wasn't like it. I consider you one of the best, but those guys.
No, I get it. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, they're studs, dude. They fish more. I think you're not thinking about me, and a lot of people may not because they don't fish as much. Like
Exactly.
I fished literally 4 events last year, but
you're running a series now.
I cast check. Yeah, I can't run a series. But the year before that with Bassmaster, it was the same. I fished 5, but either way, they're fishing like 14, 15, 16, 20. Yeah. And so they're seeing more, but I do still stay relevant, I think, because I was blessed usually to, get in the check range more often than not. So you hear my name and you think I probably fish more than I do, but I fished 4 events last year, the 3 regular season and the championship I won.
Yeah.
But I still ended up in 6th in AOI, just with the minimum of 3 events. And I think people are like, oh, that guy's like crushing. He's fishing all these events, winning everything because you win the championship. Of course, you're going to be talked about and you're going to be in the press and a lot. But no, I don't fish that much. So I can see why you would say Ewing and Russ, especially Russ, before my name would get,
Yeah, and it's not a slide on the fishing at all. It's just you see those guys at every one. And then after this one, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I started counting the number of wins, and it's you're blowing everybody away.
I do have 10 wins total, like national, between Hobie and now if you count AOIs, I've got 12. You see what I'm saying? Because I had a Hobie AOI and a Bassmaster, but Ewing, I don't know how many he's got. We should find out. We should ask Ewing. That's what Kayak Fishing Weekly should work on. Actually, starting to get a spreadsheet and tracking like just simple stats, not like something crazy. Just wins and AOIs and stuff like that. Because I mean, no one's doing that. It's smart for you guys to someone has to start like Ken Duke. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's
he was doing
Ken.
we just do it for the kayak space. Nobody's doing it. You're right.
Yeah, I'll shout out Russ, man. I think he's the best kayak angler there is, and he is just awesome when you talk to him. And I always say that whether you play basketball, football, whatever it is, like if you're at a high level, like game can recognize game. You know what I mean? They respect it and they recognize it. And when I talk to Russ, and there are others that I mean, really they get it on like a whole just another level. And Russ is definitely in that conversation for sure. And he's probably number one. My book, he's like the best. Now we talked the other day actually about this. He's got 16 wins total. I've got 10. He's got 16. Now he's probably fished, I bet you more than double. I bet he's almost fished triple the events, but that's not his fault that I haven't fished. You know what I mean? Like maybe I don't win 16 if I fish as many as him. I don't know. But so I still think he's the best. He's out there crushing it. And Ewing, it'd be interesting to see how many Ewing has as well. He's got a lot as well, but I don't think it's 10 yet, but
Yeah.
it's right. It's getting close, I bet.
I'm blown away by all you guys. It's I remember I've told it before, like I thought when, kind of watching afar before I actually fished my first tournament, I was like, oh yeah, I can compete with those guys. You hear some of those names a lot and like, oh yeah, I bet I can get in there and compete. No. I was very humbled. I've been very humbled over the last few years.
But you've had a lot of success.
There's levels to this game.
There are, but you've had a lot of success, man. Compared to like most people that are out there fishing these tournaments, you've definitely are in the upper, you know what I mean, like percentile of anglers that fished on the national level. You've won events, you know what I mean? Like how many people can say that? Not many.
It's
just
nice
to
of you to say that, surrounded by your castle. But
Yeah.
anyway, I want to jump into the tournament
Let's
because
go.
it was to me looking at it, I don't know a ton about Havasu. I've never fished it, but from watching those old Bassmaster tournaments, seeing the Aaron Martins pitching up into those reeds and seeing guys out drop shotting, I did not think this was an event that was going to play to your strengths. But obviously you proved me wrong. Like it was really cool to see. You shared some footage with me, and to see the sorts of places where you were able to go and find them. To me, it's kind of a testament that you fish your strengths, and you can go find places anywhere. It's kind of encouraging that no matter what fishery you're on, you seem to be able to go and find the kind of fish that you're really good at catching.
Yeah, man, it just happens to kind of work out. It maybe it's partly because I easily eliminate a lot of the water, and so I can just focus on my stuff. Now, whether there's a little bit like this situation, there wasn't much. There's only that one river. All the other ones are dry leading into. I had one option. So the fact that I flew in, we'll get into the whole story. I flew in and got my stuff there and all that, and then I only had one day to on the water pre-fishing, and so, but it was kind of nice that there was only one river. There's no creeks that are flowing. There's no other rivers because I was able to just check it out. Now there was about from our top of the boundary down to the lake. There was like 25 miles probably of river. You know what I mean? But I chose the ugliest, most mundane, blah looking section and intentionally for a reason, which we'll get into. But yeah, so the reason why you watch old Bassmaster videos, you don't see anybody pulling it off in the river and doing that stuff, is honestly because when you have a bass boat like that, and those guys mainly fish a lot of lakes, and out west there's not a lot of quote rivers. In these lakes they're just canyons, and there's no real flowing water that comes into any of them. They don't know how to fish rivers, A, and B, it's a long run to get all the way through the gorge up Havasu all the way up into where I was. You know what I mean? I'm sure some of them fish up in the river section. I know they do up in that gorge, but way up where I am, it's like you're passing so much lake, which they all know how to fish lakes and drop shot and deeper stuff, and the reeds, like you say, the tulies, as they call them out west. So they're going to pass all that just to get to this ugliest looking piece of river you've ever seen it in terms of what they pass. It's still beautiful, don't get me wrong, but they got to pass this incredible I can pull up a satellite imagery and you'll see it's this incredible gorge with mountains and backwaters and tulies, and that largemouth live in these backwater little ponds and lakes, and you can sneak in through them, with your about the width of your bass boat, get in there and flipping that stuff. And so why go up to this ugly straightaway? There's no bends, there's no trees falling in. It's just riprap bank. It's 13 miles of a straightaway, which is the worst for a river angler. That's like not what you look for typically, the straightaways, and
you
no wood.
You purposely picked that.
I purposely picked that. I know it obviously it worked out. Like I just really, Bailey has always said this, so I always got to give Bailey credit for at least recognizing this, that he was like, dude, I think you might be, like you said earlier, I may not be Russ or may not be whatever ranked number one in someone's list, but I know one thing, I am pretty good at the strategy. And that's what Bailey said. He goes, "You're the best with
Yeah.
strategy of anyone I know." And it's, to me, it's like most people are going to look at that lake and they're going to fish that gorge if they fish the river, because it's so much more scenic and looks so much fishier. And they're there somewhere, but it's a lot to dissect and figure out where are they there. You know what I mean? It's a lot deeper. Then there's some shallow backwaters. There's bluffs. There's bends. There's tules. There's a lot happening, right? Giant boulders and chunks of stuff that fall off the mountains. And my section, I'll pull it up, dude. You can see what I'm talking about. My section is just
Kind of
not good. Yeah, so not good. So let's see. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go to Google Maps. Yeah, here we go. Havasu's already up. Perfect. So you guys can see my screen, right?
I got
So,
you.
all right, cool. So this, and you want to make it full screen, feel free to do it. There's a toggle. You can do that if I'm not full screen. But this was one of our bottom launch Castle Rock. It actually got taken away. So it was actually another launch like further down. But you can see how the river here, there's like all these little backwater ponds, that you can just kind of get into with tules. But really, when you get up here further above Castle Rock, you've got a lot of this water that you can get into. All these little little ponds like this right here. All these you can get into those for largemouth. You could fish the main river for smallmouth. There's a ton of that stuff. So you can get all the way back up into this stuff here. If the water levels are right, which I didn't pre-fish there, so I don't know. You could definitely get into this one. There's a boat in there, right here on this satellite image, and there's
Running.
running, doing some jet skiing or something, or wakeboarding or something. But you can get in here and fish all this stuff, right? I mean, there's probably fish on all this old wood and stuff that's up there. And this just does this not look incredible? I mean,
Yeah.
it does. And I'm sure they're there somewhere, but look how much there is to dissect. Look how much habitat there is to figure out. There's tules, there's the main river, there's a sandbar here. Could they be on the back of this? Could they be up shallow, sunning back here? Is it the steep bluff banks as you move up the river? You'll notice it gets narrow and you stop with so much of the backwater, you start to get to these big mountains. So are they up against these bluffs where mountains are hitting it? Are they, see all that sand piling up? Are they behind a sandbar? Are they, it's a lot to figure out. And having one day on the water, I just couldn't, I don't know if I would have had enough time to, are they in that backwater? Are they up here with this gigantic, bluff, steep wall here? It's a lot, man. This gorge is beautiful, but it's hard to actually dissect them and finally find them there. But my section, as you get further up, we were allowed to put in right here this Topak 66. We also had access here at Pirate Cove Marina and Resort. We also had an access. There's several that were way up here, all the way to this bridge right here. So you can see from 95, that bridge in Needles, that was our hard boundary. All the way down, just look, and you can tell. Can you not tell when you zoom way out? That's just a valley. See Willow Valley? The whole thing is flat as could be. And look at this, from Needles here, there's just one long straightaway, basically. There's no hard bends like down here. There's nothing cool and sexy. It's really just a long straightaway, and there's no bluffs. It's just no topography. It's just flat desert. And you'll see what I'm talking about. If I click right here, you'll see. Watch this street view. So that's down looking at the gorge. See how those mountains? It's entering the gorge as you go downstream towards the lake. Mountains and beauty. And then, wow, there's clouds in this satellite image. That's rare. But this, you could tell, I mean, even above that railroad track, it's just, once you get out that direction, it's just a big wide valley, and it's just blah. And you can look at those banks. It's just blah. No wood falling in, just nothing. Rock and some riprap, and then it goes to sand about 5 feet off that riprap. It ends under the water, and it's sand all the way to the other side until the riprap starts again. So there's nothing. So anyway,
Is that stuff pretty shallow up there?
Yeah, it's shallow. And I actually, I could pull in some pictures here in a second too from pre-fishing. So I chose that because I just thought, everyone that's there practicing all week, if they're going to practice in the river, they really probably aren't going to try that section, and not many people would. And there may not be as many fish up there, but I knew from all my research that the trout stocking was below Lake Mojave Dam, like further up, like 25 miles up the next dam, or 30, whatever it was. And the trout, like the warm water species, really, I mean, don't get me wrong, largemouth and smallmouth are still all the way up there. There's a few backwaters up there, but I knew that the trout water kind of ended. It got, a little bit more largemouthy, and especially smallmouthy, kind of down in that zone. And so if they were there, it's a straightaway. It's not pretty. That I just didn't think a lot of people were going to be trying it. You know what I mean? So if I found them, I thought I could have them pretty much to myself. And there were other people in that section and launched from that ramp. I think most of them went downstream. Not as many went up where I was, but there were some. But every time I would talk to somebody, they were like, "Nah, I've only got one, or I can't catch them. I've seen a few, but can't catch them." And so I'm practice on third. Like, so let me get to the how we got there, right? With the kayak and flying in, because that's a cool story. So I just happened to see one day there was a sale on flights from Spirit Airlines, $40, like to a lot of these cities around the country. And I got to fly to ICAST. I got to fly my kids and family sometime at maybe a Kayak Adventure Series tournament, so my son doesn't miss a whole bunch of school or something. I just thought, hey, I might have to fly a few times this year. Let me see where they're going. I ended up, I wasn't even thinking about Lake Havasu in this tournament. I've already written it off as somewhere I'm not going to be able to fish this year. But when I saw that they were flying into Vegas, I was like, Vegas? That's kind of close to Havasu. And I have fished in Yuma, Arizona on the Colorado River system. And this system, like I had one day and did a float trip with my boy Brooks Beatty from Jackson Kayak when I was with Jackson. We did a trip with the guys from OEX over there in San Diego. And we did some other saltwater fishing too on that trip. But we went inland to do some bass fishing on the Colorado. And we floated the river. I caught some big largemouth to flipping tules, and it was so much fun. Like the environment was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was incredible. So I always wanted to go back. And this is the same river system. This is basically the next section down from Havasu. So when I saw that Vegas, I was like, okay, the wheels started to turn in my head. And then I was just like, all right, let me see if I can borrow some stuff from some people I know at West, like the kayak fishing community. We all know each other, West Coast, East Coast. And so I hit up Amanda Brandon, and she said she had a Torpedo I could borrow and an extra kayak if I needed it, because Matthew Brandon was going, her husband from the Delta area, San Francisco, where she lives. And then Shane Lamont was like, yeah, Southern California friend of mine. He's like, I got extra stuff you can use. So I knew I had stuff. If I wanted to borrow, I had it. So I talked to my wife and said, hey, what do you think about me doing this trip? And fortunately, I wasn't looking at our family calendar. I just had like my work calendar pulled up. And she was like, that's our girls' weekend. You literally on the calendar, it says Drew watching kids all weekend. And I'm like, oh, dang it.
You almost got in trouble.
Sucks. Yeah, I did. So anyway, then I was on a live stream with Kayak Adventure Series one day. We were live. My wife comes down and she goes, oh, by the way, that girls' weekend trip is moved to another weekend because one of the maybe like my wife's aunt or sister-in-law, somebody, it just didn't work out, for their schedule, so they had to move it. And so she goes, you may be able to. And she's standing right here on the stairs. She was like, you may be able to go. Let's talk about it after your live stream. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm very mentally.
How much did you have to bribe the family member to not be able to go that week?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's what I did. Yeah, it was perfect plan. But strategy. I owe them. I'll say that much. I definitely owe them. So she was like, yeah. I said, look, I found a flight that flies out of the evening, like 7 p.m. So I'm pretty much here all Wednesday. I'm literally going to be, I'll land, 10 p.m. that time, but I'll drive 2.5 hours down there and, be able to get my stuff together and get organized, maybe even get a half day on the water on Thursday and then fish Friday. So, and then I'll be back. There was a red eye on Sunday night. So I literally will be back. I land at 7 a.m. on Monday morning, flying overnight. So I'm really only gone, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like 4 days. It's not bad, right? Because I don't want to be gone for my kids and my wife more than I have to anyway. You know what I mean? I love them. It's tough being gone long periods of time. So I kind of want to cut back on my pre-fishing time, just kind of go in with one day and just see what happens this year. Just one day. That was my strategy for the whole season, except for Lake Fork, because I've never fished Fork, and it is the championship. And obviously trying to defend my title. I'll give that one a good 2.5, 3 days. But anyway, all the regular. Yeah. You like that. Yeah. You've had some good times there for sure. So she said, cool, go for it. And at that point I knew I was going. I booked the flight. And so then it was actually crazier. I didn't even tell this on on all the other podcasts I've been on. Like my son also had a surgery earlier that week, and it was going to be a pretty tough recovery. And that got canceled because he got sick. So they couldn't do it while he was sick. And that would have been pretty rough leaving with him kind of like in bad shape. You know what I mean? Like just recovering. So, I mean, it's a pretty standard procedure, but it takes, solid 2 weeks to get back to 100% in the first few days of the work. So now I'd have been leaving like the day after his surgery or something. But anyway, that got moved, so we were fortunate. But um, I ended up flying in, or I put feelers out there to my local kayak fishing club, the Kayak Anglers of Northeast Ohio, if anyone wanted to, just go with me. And Jake Cook, my buddy Jake Cook here, said, I'll go. He's never fished a national event, but it was a chance for him to kind of learn, how I approach it. My brain, the entire flight and all during the drive and the rental truck and at the house we stayed at with the SoCal boys. He was like that. He just saw it as a cool opportunity, cheap flight, $170 flight. We ended up finding one out of Cleveland round trip. We didn't need the Spirit Airlines flight out of Columbus, which is 2.5 hours from us. We just got like $170 round trip flight from Cleveland. And it was direct, so we were able to fly out with Frontier here. And then, but before that, actually backing up to Christmas time, I actually talked to Steve Owens, because you always want to talk to your tournament director if you need anything for a tournament, whether it's a catch board or whatever. It doesn't matter. You always want to talk to them like, hey, is there a place I can rent a kayak in the area? Because they usually know the local kayak fishing shops and stuff like that. And I just told Steve, I said, hey, man, I'm gonna come to this event. I'm gonna support it. I'm gonna fly in. I need to get out of this, Ohio winter a few times, two, 3 times anyway, to kind of like break it up. And I fished in that in Yuma, and I loved it out there. So I'm just going to fly in. It's going to be cheaper than if I were to drive to Dardanelle or Grand or Toledo or Lake Fork or Possum Kingdom. The amount of gas money driving there and back is more than this flight. You know what I mean? Like $170. It definitely would have been more, especially practicing, driving around all the time. So this is actually less expensive, this trip. It's crazy, because Vegas and Orlando are 2 places you can fly in super cheap in this country from wherever, even though it's a 4-hour flight or whatever from east to west. So he happened to mention, he didn't, at this time, it's so early, not many people had registered. He just said, Joe McElroy is driving there. And I was like, that's cool. That's interesting. All the way from Alabama. Man, good for Joe. But I was like, I'm going to actually go to Georgia for Christmas every year, where I'm from originally. So I was like, Alabama's pretty close to Georgia. I could just call Joe and see if he has room, and he could drive all my stuff out there. That way I've got all my tackle, my motor, my Torpedo, and all 3 batteries, you know what I mean? And my own kayak, my Crescent Shoaly. So I called Joe, and like most of all the kayak fishing community, I bet you 95% of kayak anglers would have done it if they had room. I would do it for anybody. If I have room and you can get me your stuff, I'll drive it. I don't care, and you can fly in. That's great. I just want to help people enjoy the sport and get out on the water. So, and that's what's cool about our community. I think everyone pretty much would have done that. So he said, dude, if you get it to me, I'll take it. No problem. So we put it on the SUV, drove it down to Georgia. We were on our way to Georgia to drop it off to him, in Alabama, after we did like Christmas in Georgia. Or he said he might meet us in Georgia because he had some business to do over there anyway in Atlanta. So I was like, perfect. Well, 4.5 hours down in our trip down to Georgia, my wife gets kind of sick, and she wasn't feeling good before we left, and we probably should have never left. And she was like, hey, we need to stop. I'm feeling good. We're around Lexington, Kentucky. And we stopped at Holiday Inn, wife and the kids. And 3 days later, we're still at the same Holiday Inn. Like, she was that sick. She couldn't get out of bed. She was really, really not in good shape. So the problem we had, we knew I wasn't going to make it to Georgia. We weren't, as a family, going to do Christmas down there with my family this year because of, her illness, and the kids were sick too. But my wife was the worst of all of us. And so I said, well, I got to get this stuff to Joe somehow. Otherwise, I'm back to the drawing board if I just bring it back home, and then have to start calling and borrowing kayaks. And I didn't want to fish out of a kayak that wasn't like my stuff and have all my gear,
Yeah.
So ended up calling Joe, and Joe was like, hey, man, well, I'm in Kentucky right now, because he has a hunt fish camp below Lake Barkley on the Cumberland River. And he was like, I'm in Kentucky. And I'm like, where? He goes, I'm over here, around closer to Paducah. So he ended up being 3 hours and 45 minutes away. So I told my wife, I said, hey, are you okay enough, do you think, if I left you here, if I drove that 3 hours and 45 minutes and dropped all this stuff to Joe, that you'd be okay? And she said, yeah. And I love my son. He's 6 years old with her. And my daughter, I took her, put her in the car seat. She's, 3. And we just drove 3 hours and 45 minutes one day that we, at the hotel. She's just at the hotel. And then drove back after we dropped it all off with Joe and visited with him for a minute. And he had it since like December 29th. He had all my stuff. So it was very like, there's a lot of planning that goes into this, obviously. And then, yeah, he drove it all out there. Jake and I took the flight and rented a pickup truck, and went down. And I think we got finally into Lake Havasu City around 2:30, 3 a.m. Probably got to sleep around 3:30 after we kind of got to the Airbnb and whatnot. So we woke up early. We only got a few hours of sleep because we wanted to meet. Like Scott Stolman ended up letting Jake. I made some calls and got a kayak for Jake to use. Scott Stolman drove in from Minnesota, so shout out to Scott Stolman. Unfortunately, had a DQ. Unfortunately, this event, which is a bummer, but he had the wrong like identifier code or whatever, the wrong. Like it was like instead of an 8 or whatever, it was like an S. So feel for him for sure. Understand that you got to do Q it. But anyway, shout out to Scott.
Been there before.
Yeah, we've all kind of had something like that happen. Scott caught fish. He had a good tournament compared to the field. You know what I mean? And came all the way from Minnesota and drove that kayak to. But understandably, he was pretty upset. I would be too. Whether it was just at myself or the situation. But anyway, so shout out to him for doing that. That was nice. And he had a Newport he was going to let Jake borrow, but the Newport actually sponsors the Bassmaster Kayak Series. So the Newport people actually ended up giving Jake a new Newport and a battery to use for that kayak. So not like to keep, obviously, but just to borrow. But yeah, so he ended up using that. So so thanks to Newport. And then we drove around that Thursday. We just drove around and looked at ramps, checked water temps. I had a digital thermometer, shipped straight to the Airbnb so I could check water temps, dip it in. And that whole section of river there, we just drove down some back roads, some dirt roads where we could access the river and look at it and check it out, make a few. Actually caught one, from the bank somehow, which is insane looking back on this event and how hard it was that I actually caught one from the bank. But we did. And then the next day I floated that whole section I just showed you from Needles down to that interstate bridge and just was looking, just trying to catch fish. I actually saw, let me share some stuff here. I will share my screen real quick. I'm going to pull up those pictures.
Yeah, what is that, like 10 miles, 15 miles?
It is about, I think it's like 13, 14, something like that. It was a lot. Okay. Nice long section. So here we go. I'm going to pull up these photos. And now I'm going to give you guys a photo tour, I guess, when I hit share. Share my window. And this should be, hang on, it's coming up. It's got to find the right. Here we go. I think it's this one.
Yep.
Is there photos or what are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I'm looking at the individual photos, and then I think you've got to click on one to.
What about, whoops.
To pull it up.
Yeah, I thought I had pulled up. Yeah, I thought I had it pulled up. Hang on. Let me go back over to that tab. Yeah, let me pull it up. I was trying to control, you can control command. Is it command? Like Y? Tell me if they all come up now.
They're
not up.
I still got them. I can see them, but not like individually.
All right, that's all right. I'm gonna fix it right here, real quick. So, hang tight.
No worries.
Stop sharing that. I'm still. Here we go. I got it. This is just a little technology. Here we go. All right.
We were talking offline how long it takes me to load stuff, so I know.
Yeah. You got it pulled up right there.
It'd be way worse with me.
Yeah, technology. We got it. All right. So this is me holding a spinning rod and how dejected I was that I knew I had to fish a spinning rod this tournament. So,
so when have you thrown a spinning rod? It's since 10 killer.
Dude, I guess I did catch that one on a spinning rod. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think I have. But the SoCal boys we stayed with, they were great. We had such a good house. They took this picture. We have to get a picture of you. You look so sad. Shane Lamont was helping me tie out on a drop shot. And I do not fish a drop shot. I do not fish spinning rods, like hardly ever. But I didn't even remember how to tie one. It'd been so long. I was like, I didn't even remember how to tie one. And he was like, dude, here. And all the California guys, West Coast guys, they're great at it. They're awesome at it. So he was like, let me show you. Let me remind you how to do it. And anyway, Taiwan. But I thought I had it all pulled up where I could just click on the next one. Dang it. See? Technology. And let me get out of that and try it to
it's probably my fault. It follows me.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I'll get it where it pulls them all up. But because you can do Command Y and it literally brings them all up. So I just got to go back now to StreamYard and find that window. I don't know why it doesn't show up though. All right, tell you what, I got a better idea. I'm gonna share my entire screen. I got nothing on here that you guys, don't need to see. I'll just share the whole screen. So whatever I do on my screen, you're gonna see, right? So that's the easiest. That's the easiest way. Oh yeah, you will. It's the easiest way to do this. All right, share screen. So it's gonna be a little Inception. See that?
Pulling up. Awesome.
All right, you got the picture. All right, cool. So it's kind of, this is all out of order here. So, but I'll get to all this stuff.
Spoiler alert, you won.
Yeah, spoiler. Yeah. This is the blah, like the river. Yeah, there's a few little jetties, those rock kind of things that stick out there, but like they weren't even on that stuff. That's what most people are looking for, something like that, thinking there's the deep holes behind those jetties where they're going to be, right? But they weren't there. And actually, this is kind of a cool photo. They were a little bit more those little, you see those like mossy looking things in the water,
like a little bit darker than the rest of it.
Yeah, they're like little hard spots of like harder clay and like and they have this mossy kind of stuff that the vegetation, little stuff that grows on it, and behind it sometimes there's actually like a little depression or something. It's a little current break, little just subtle depression, and it's a straightaway. But look above at that jetty up top, that deep hole. I'm telling you right now, that's like 30 feet deep below that. The one up above my kayak there, if you can barely see my kayak in the middle, the one north of me, there's like, it's like 25, 30 feet deep right there. Yeah. It's just the water is so clear. It's like Dasani clear. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so anyway, you're probably thinking, oh, they're going to be on all those jetties behind that, and the current breaks behind it, but that's not where they were. And I even knew if people were even going to float this section, not that I knew where the fish were before I went there. Trust me, I marked those jetties too to look at, but I know that fish don't always use what we want them to use in our heads and what we figure that looks the best for them to hide behind an ambush, right? They don't always use that stuff. Sometimes it's more smallmouth, especially, and even largemouth will use flats more than anything. And they want to sun themselves, right? On the shallower water that's actually warmer because it's shallower, and the depth of that 25 foot behind that jetty is colder, even though there's no thermocline in a river. You know what I mean? It's all the same temp, but down deep is colder and a little bit colder in a river when you get so far deep because the sun's hitting that warmer, shallower water. You see what I'm saying? So it's actually like a little bit warmer, shallower. And most people are thinking, tell me if I'm wrong here. You're thinking wintertime, I need to go deep because in the lake there's a thermocline and you got to fish deep and slow.
Deepest water you can find.
Yeah. And then that's true for lakes. In a river, it isn't always true. They will be deep at times, but it's not always true. So there is a smallmouth, a picture of a smallmouth I saw when I floated. And this is why I started to pull up these photos. When I floated that section on the only day I had on the water on Friday at practice, I would just float down. First we motored up to the bridge, our hard boundary, and I caught a couple small ones, just blind casting on those bridge pilings, like 10 inchers, like small ones. But then I floated down and we just started looking. My goal was like 10 kilo. I just want to look in the water because it's crystal clear. I don't need to catch them. I just need to see if there's bass there, So I ended up just looking on the way down. And if I saw one, I saw a couple largemouth under a dock that came out under a shallow dock, and then a smallmouth was right there. It was like I thought it was 12 or 13 inches. So I threw at it with a Z-Man Gobius because I had a good feeling about that bait because it worked so good on that clear water on the Illinois River that feeds 10 killer when I caught that fish, like you said, in the championship on it. So I said, I had a bunch of those Gobius extra ones shipped from Z-Man. So huge shout out to Joey at Z-Man for sending those because I wanted as many colors and different weights as possible because I knew that was going to be what was probably going to do it for me at this tournament if I could find them there. And I saw a smallmouth like this one that was like 10, 12 feet down, and I threw at it ahead of it. And sure enough, it bit. So I knew once I saw them, there is still a chance I can catch them, even though they see me, because that one bit. So once I did that, I didn't really cast at him anymore in practice because what's the point, right? I'm just going to mark them. So I started marking them. Yeah, don't burn them. That was just a cool shot, like how clear it was and seeing the silhouette of that
So
shadow
how
of the
deep was
kayak.
that water where that smallmouth was?
This picture, I mean, that's probably like, it is probably like 10 feet deep. I mean, right there.
Good
That one,
Lord.
yeah, that one just happened to be a little. I think I'm zoomed in pretty far, maybe less. But they really weren't that close to me or getting under the kayak unless it was a little bit deeper. You know what I'm saying? They would get they would be curious and almost come up to it if it was deeper. But most fish weren't really that deep. This was like further up on that float where I did see some that were a little bit deeper, like 10. As you'll see
Gotcha.
in the tournament, they were mostly shallow. This is a coyote.
Oh, I see him. Yeah. They blend in so well.
Yeah.
They're really adaptable too.
Yeah.
I was fascinated the little time that I was in California, I got into photography and would try to find those things and photograph them.
Yep.
Just cool
They're
critters.
very cool. Very cool. And that's my setup. That's all I brought. Just a black pack, some tackle in it, and then that one tackle box and Torpedo, 3 batteries, uh, bending branches paddle, and then I got some yak rods. I'm actually working on a signature series line of rods with yak rods. So Tandy from Yak Rods came and fished this event with her son Evan, and she brought me the prototypes, the first ones of that signature series rod. It was just a prototype of the blank. It wasn't like anything else, but that's what we needed to figure out first, the action, of the rod. Is this
Sure.
about right? And all that stuff, the guide placement, all that. And it was dialed. It was so perfect. I loved them. They're just casting rods. So my spinning rod was still a 13 that, one of my 13s when I was sponsored by them. But that's a setup, man, with the kayak cushion on there. Got it all ready to rock and roll. Crescent Shoaly. So this is the one I caught in practice that I told you I thought was 12, and I looked in the water, and then by the time I got it up to the boat, and it measured like 15. So they're a lot bigger than you think they are when they're down there, because it's so clear. They're just so
Beautiful colors on them too.
yeah. I mean, see how she's going down to like basically 10 feet. I mean, and that's me
That is cool.
dejected. That was Jake and I at the airport in Vegas. So anyway, that's all yeah, this is going back to the beginning. That was me when I got back home. And I put it in the snow.
That's a cool picture though.
Yeah, that is a cool picture. And that was it going down the so but yeah, we can get to the fishing. But the coolest, I just want to show you guys these pictures because they tell a lot of the story a little bit better. But that was cool carrying it on the plane. I wasn't sure if I should carry it on the plane. I can stop sharing the screen now. But or if I should like carry it on the plane or have Joe McElroy drive it back. And I thought, man, it'd be cool to have it in my podcast. I'm not going to see Joe till the Kissimmee, a Bassmaster, which is not far away actually. But I was like, I'll fly with it back. And if they charge me, they charge me. I don't care. Because how often do you get a chance to like hold a blue trophy on the plane?
Yeah,
Fly
I wouldn't
back.
let it out of my sight.
No.
If I ever get another one, it's glued to me.
Right. That's kind of the way I felt. So I'm going to do it. And it was cool because they actually, when we landed, they actually, the pilot or the flight attendant got on the loudspeaker and was like, "And congratulations to Drew Gregory for winning the Bassmaster Kayak Series championship." And it was just so cool, man, for them to like actually say that on the plane. Yeah. And so they kind of like what they saw me carrying the trophy on the way in. We were flying Frontier, and you got to pay to have a sign, like to choose your seat. And Jake and I wanted to sit next to each other, obviously, but we were just gonna wing it and hope that we could find 2 seats open. But it was a full flight, so we couldn't. He ended up sitting. His assigned seat was back next to the lavatories, the very last row in the plane. He was just, back there, and the flight attendant asked him. He goes, "Hey, I saw you come in with that guy with the trophy. What was that all about?" And Jake told him the story. Jake Cook. And he said, we were out there fished this tournament. He told him some of the stats, and they actually came on the loudspeaker and said, he beat 110 other anglers, which is actually, there was 111 in the tournament. So they were actually they even took out me. They were like, he beat 110 other anglers. They knew all the stats. And then even though we all just woke up from sleeping on a red eye, I'd say at least half the plane was like, yay, cheered. That was kind of cool. So never forget that. That was a cool thing. But to the story, and I can share some video files on how I caught them. Let's go day one.
Yeah.
So
you've picked the ugliest section of river you can find, trying to get away from
people.
Well, there's some fish.
Right. Actually, I will back up and say after I caught that fish that I just showed you I released, I floated the whole section. Jake went and took the truck and went and exploring some other areas. And I actually floated that whole 13-mile section. And you can only float down one side or the other, right? As you're looking in the water. And I don't see many bass. I'm kind of like, this is a bust. I've seen some, but it's not enough to win. I've maybe seen maybe like every mile and a half, like a long ways. You don't see anything, no bait, nothing, dude. Justin, I'm telling you, it's like you see carp, you'll see some big carp, and that is it. You don't see anything else until every once in a while, like every mile and a half, or maybe 2 miles, even two. It might be like every 2 miles, you run into one or two smallies just sitting there, and it wasn't, or maybe there was a couple spots that had some largemouth too. It wasn't promising. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone with Jake, just kind of seeing how his day's going. This is, like I said, it's Friday, it's practice. And he was like, yeah, I'm just driving around. I just got back from this place or that place. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone with him, and I go, oh my goodness, dude, school smallmouth right there. And I was like, I got to call you back. And I whipped around and I checked them out. And there was like 15 smallies that were between like 15, 16, and like 18 inches, like just all in this little depression. This shallow, good fish. This shallow, very shallow, the western bank, shallow, and around some of that mossy kind of stuff I was telling you about that we saw in that satellite, or not the drone footage from Bassmaster. And then I actually started exploring that bank a little bit more after I marked those fish, and I saw some more fish on that bank too. So now I'm like, okay, this might have legs. There might be something here. And I also, that fish I caught off the bank remember I told you I caught one off the bank? It was right in this section too, where we had driven in. So I was like, okay, I know there's fish at that spot. I know there's this school. I've seen fish on this bank, and I did mark a few fish further up, and I caught one, way up that I saw. So I know I could catch. So I'm like, this has possibilities. So anyway, tournament day 1, I'm cruising up the river on, river right. And it was a riprap bank that I hadn't looked at in practice. I came down the other side, and I said, once it's light, I'm just looking in the water. As it gets light enough, I'm just motoring to my spot, right? But if I see a smallmouth, I know, like, okay, I might want to stop and slow down and fish, because there's definitely usually they're not like alone. They're on that bank. There's probably a few more if you see some right in that area. And I saw one, and I looked at the clock, and because I was just planning on going straight to my stuff, I looked at the clock, and it was already after lines in. I was just going to keep motoring, but I said, I might as well just kind of move fast and like swim that gobius along this bank and see if I get bit. And I caught a 15 1/4. So I had a bonus fish that I never knew was there, wasn't expecting that fish. I found it, that day, that morning. So that was the first fish. And then I get up to my school. So here's I'll show you the school fish here. Actually, I'm just going to go pull up I'm going to find a different way to show you guys this fish, because this is, it's going to be better doing it this way.
Cool. And just, I was looking at the stats earlier, because I listened to the award ceremony. I was working a trade show, but listened to the award ceremony on the way home. And then I pulled the stats, and I'm counting 30 guys that did not catch a fish in the tournament. So it was not easy fishing at all.
No, no, it was not, man.
That had one or two. I mean, the top 10, there were anglers in the top 10 that did not have 10 fish. 5 for each day. So
I think there were only 6.
Happen often.
Maybe 6 people limited both days. It does not happen often. It was very tough. Because think about it, you're dealing with cold and clear. So this is the first fish on that riprap bank that I just was looking down, and I said, I saw a smallmouth, so I said I might as well just keep working my way fast upstream and fishing. And I got one. So that was number 1.
Heck yeah.
Okay. Scorable. I could just scrub to all the action here. Stay on. I'm going no net, as always. Rocking no net.
I can't do it. I can't.
But anyway, that was a...
they will hit the gobius.
Yeah, they will hit the gobius. And then I hold her up here. So that was like a 15 1/4. It starts the day off.
Number 1, 15 1/4.
So there you go. I'm going to keep bringing in videos and just keep it moving, right? This is cool.
Yeah.
So fish number 2, was at the school. I never got another fish, in some other spots. I made it all the way up to my school where I had my waypoint, and using the Omnia app, to learn some stuff and mark some waypoints.
So that actually looks fairly deep right there.
It's like 3 feet. Like it's not
Okay.
too. That's grass right below me. But check out on the line to the right of my shoulder. You guys are going to see. If you want, you're welcome to make this full screen. But there's a button down there. I think you can make it full screen. See that right there, that little swirl right there off my shoulder, right? You'll see it happen right here. If it's streaming good for you, right there. See that?
Is that up ahead, upriver you're talking about?
No, just off my right shoulder. There was a swirl. See that right there? Like right. I'm gonna pause it. See that right there off my right shoulder? That disturbance.
Gotcha. So just upstream a little ways.
Just upstream, yeah, off my right shoulder, yeah.
I see it.
The pack of smallmouth hitting the line where it enters the water, like a brim will do, or sometimes bass do it. They'll hit the line. See, look at that. They're attacking my line because they're seeing it cut through the water. And I just brought my Gobi set a lot quicker. Reel it up to them. While they're fired up, get in that school as fast as you can. And then I got bit. Now watch how many fish. I sent you this clip, so you've seen it. Watch how many fish follow in that little sandy spot up there off the bow of my kayak. You'll see. Look at them all. They're all just following it back in.
Ooh.
And there was a solid 12 at least, right, that followed it.
That's a good fish too.
Yeah, that was a pretty good fish. I don't know. I can't remember what this one was, but I guess I'll find out here in a second if I want to zoom all the way to the end where I release it.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, I probably will say how big it was right here.
That was going to go 16, guys. I think it's going to go 16. It's out of my school.
Not a bad one.
No, not bad at all.
That mossy stuff you were talking about too.
Yeah, exactly. So see, that's pretty shallow in front of me. That fish went down. It's like, 3 feet, So let's go and do another one. So here's what I do. Then I go back up and I'm like, all right, well, I want to throw something different in now. They all got pulled. Let me see if I can do a Z-Man Streaks on a Finesse Bullets jig head. So that was the next one. And just to show them something different,
And that Streaks is a soft jerkbait?
Yep, soft plastic jerkbait. I think this is it here. Yep, and I'm using this is it because I used it on a yak rod, spinning rod that Tandy had given me. So I wanted to go up there, just throw something different. I wanted to get back in immediately. Some people are like, maybe did you consider just waiting a little bit, let them all reset? And I said, no, if they're fired up, I want to know, and I want to get back in there immediately. So if they don't bite right when I throw back in, then sure, maybe I have to leave and can come back later. But I wanted to just get it right back in there, and see if they would bite. So there's a tree right there. It was kind of like a mark, and for me that I was getting close, and then a little small bush or whatever under the water, and then they're just kind of up there on the right, and this in the middle. And all the other fish I saw the entire way down in this river, they were all on the bank. You know what I mean? There's nothing to the bank but rock, but that's where they were, except for these fish. And actually right through in front of me on the bank, because I see there's smallmouth in front of my boat. They didn't all go back to the depression they were in, the little sandy kind of hole that gets a little bit deeper. And they were actually pulled up on the shallow backside of that hole, like on the, 2.5, 3 feet, and this kind of just getting warm. But, and this is a western bank, so it's protected from the wind. You see what I'm saying? So you got the protection from the wind. You got it's a shallower bank, so it's going to get warmer. And that's why they were there. And they found a little hole that they liked. And so this is that fish on the Streaks 3.75. So you can see them up there in that sand. If you look close, you can see them all just sitting there. So
I can't get over that braid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Straight braid, man. 8-pound tests. SX1 Sunline. Does the job. You can see smallmouth up there. Look at them all. And they don't see it, man. When it's that clear, when it's that small diameter, like 6, 8, they just don't really see it. They don't care. I know that everyone says you got to have this and fluoro and all that, but I've never had them not bite with. And I feel it better, and I get a better hook set. I don't have to tie extra knots and have an extra a chain link, right, that could possibly fail. So I just Yeah, weak spot. And I just don't ever see. There's another smallmouth right there that just swam away from that one. He was still following that one. So yeah, that's that fish. There was the other smallie right there to the right. Get her in. This is I don't know what this one set. Maybe. Guess I'll find out. Oh, I wait to get the sun on the fish. I want to make sure I get a good picture, so I would turn my boat around so the sun would hit it.
That's a good trick.
Yeah.
Get rid of that
guys,
glare.
That's a beaut, 17 inches. Just let her go.
17. So let that one go. And then I went and got another one out of there. Actually got 4 out of there. I ended up finishing my limit out of there. So, it's more of the same, but this one I forgot to have my Nocwa on, so my GoPro died, as you'll see in the middle of the fight, but I ended up holding it up, and some weird kind of glare was on my body there. But this is the only one that jumped the whole time. So he jumps right here a little bit. See? None of them really jumped at all.
Was it just the cold water, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It must have been. They just weren't a very jumping smallmouth. I don't know if you catch them in the summer, if that changes, but I mean, that one barely even got out of the water. It didn't hardly jump at all, but
yeah, that's not what I'm used to smallmouth doing.
No.
I'm used to won't stop.
Yeah. It's not normal for sure. So that was the one, like I said, it glitched and stopped, but I'll pull in the picture of it if you want to see it. Like this is I turned the GoPro back on, got it hooked up to the Nocwa, and that's that fish. So
another cookie cutter, probably around 17 out of the school.
Beautiful.
So then I needed one more to fish number 5 out of that school, and one more fish. It'd been my 4th out of the school, which I was impressed to get that many because they're all coming to the boat and they see me.
Yeah, so spook.
Yeah, so I'm kind of being stealthy, using the paddle a little bit, just being quiet, kind of bending down, staying low, get back up to my spot.
Now, are you keeping left to not throw a shadow, partly, or?
Yeah, that and just be as close to blending into the bank as I could, but not where my cast would hit those trees. And then also bending down, because if I stand up, you can see my shadow is going to extend further out. You know what I mean? So I was just kind of creeping real slow, stealthy, and just kind of, there we go, working that gobius on the bottom. And then number 5, this is a huge fish. Watch them all follow. Look at them all coming. Zip, 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 zip. They're all following. Here comes another one, chasing it down.
They're all following him, dude. Come on.
So
such a cool looking place.
Oh, it's really cool. You see in front of my boat, it's like 2.5 feet, 2 feet right there in front of the boat. It comes up pretty high and shallow right there. Dude, off the bank there.
Gobius. Right in the face. Number 5. Decent limit too.
And that gobius is pretty similar to the.
I got one here.
What was that? 8? You said 18.5?
No, 17.5. That's my biggest one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Beauty.
There's a gobius.
Okay.
But
so it's kind of like a dark sleeper, but with that Z-Man at Laztec.
Exactly. And it's some other cool, unique, little different things as well. So that's what I just said. I said I'm gonna let that school rest for a while, and I ended up loading all 4 of those fish because I only uploaded that first fish right away. And then while the school was fired up, I didn't want to load fish in Tourney X, so I loaded all the fish, and I had a limit. It was 10:30ish, and I saw I was in first place by a pretty good bit. Somebody had 70 something behind me, and I was like, okay. At that point, I was like, I'm not touching that school. Why touch the school? They're all the same size. What am I going to upgrade? Like a little bit? And I need, and not many people had, like 1 or 2 people had limits, like me and maybe 2 other people, 1 or 2. I was like, man, it's already 10:30. This is really tough for everyone, seems like. So I want to save all these fish, and I'm still going to try to upgrade and find new fish on this day. You know what I mean? And, but yeah, this is the gobius. I hold it up here to the camera. You guys can see. It looks just like a river darter, and that's why I use it in the rivers a lot. It's a goby imitation, obviously, but looks just like a river darter. And instead of Lastech plastic, like you said, so it holds up, lasts really well. Surprisingly, most people would think in the winter you're going to want to use that 3/4 ounce. It's a small little bait, but it comes in 3/4. But I actually was using a half on practice in the first day and then a 3/8 on that shallow bank on the second day. So I could just swim it slower, because the heavier it is, you actually got to work it faster to keep it off the bottom if you don't want it on the bottom, So I actually went all the way to the lightest one. But they ended up going and calling one time on, there's a spot a little further upstream. There's a little cutout that goes to like some sort of sand like quarry or something, pond. They're like dredging,
Okay.
See that little pond to the left, little cutout. There's some milky water that kind of sits on the edge of that. It's kind of milky. So it actually has a little bit more stain. You can barely tell. You might be able to tell it's a little bit more stained on the right there. It's right in my kayak. When you're looking down deep, it's not as clear as it was. And if that's a little bit of that stain, I just saw, looked up and saw like a smallmouth or two sitting right at the point there. So I threw at them. So here we go. We'll see.
And is that the streaks or the gobies?
The gobies. Yeah, back with the gobies. And there she goes. She bit. Just want to work her around that rocky point there, keeping the rod high.
She saw it. I thought I saw a little bit of a flash. This is probably in coal. Probably 16 and a half, 16 and 3/4.
She's got, there's a friend with her. Another one that was just as big, if not bigger.
Friend looks a little bigger, actually.
So this ended up being a coal. I think I gained maybe gained like 3/4 of an inch here, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. I was at 82.75, and then I think I ended up at 83.5 after I coaled this with this one fish. So that was that was a cool catch there. And then I lost another one earlier the day on that streaks, 3.75, and that was it. I only had 7 bites, landed 6, and was sitting in second place with 83.5. Guy in the lead, Peter, I think Herbert, was 87. He had a really good day. I mean, compared to the field, only 11 people had a limit. 11 people had a limit. So we knew on day 2, probably only half of those people are going to get a limit. So only about 6 people, 5 or 6 were going to limit. And that was true. So I knew my entire strategy on day 2 was just get a limit. Just try to get a limit. I don't care. Do whatever I have, just get a limit. And that was my entire strategy revolved around that. So I actually went, I don't have to show every fish for day 2. I don't want to keep us too long, but I will say that I will show a few here of the key ones. So remember that first bank that I caught the fish on day 1, that kind of like riprap bank on the right, the only fish I caught on that right bank.
Yep.
This is where I'm motoring up on day 2, and I wanted to start a little bit earlier, and Lion's End just had hit. So I said, all right, I'm actually at a pretty good looking spot. This is close. This is a little bit before I caught that other fish when I'd seen some other fish. So let me just start here and make some blind casts. Well, you have a very, very limited window of low light in the desert because there's no clouds. As soon as the sun comes up, there's not like a bunch of tall trees that make this bank shaded for very long. You don't have long for this low light window. So I figured I'll fish it, and ended up, let me see, I zip up. My second cast. Here we go. This is my second cast, guys. So here's my first cast. I'm winding it in. Second cast, just hit 7:30, our Lion's End time. So I was pretty stoked to get one on the second cast.
Shoot, yeah. Especially when you got that school in your back pocket that you let rest.
Exactly. And then I was very concerned about the school too. Like, how many could I get to bite out of there? If I got 4 on day 1, could I get maybe 2, 1? And I'll get to that in a minute. But this was critical fish to have a big one. This is the biggest fish that I caught all tournament, 17 3/4.
Stay peg. Stay peg, girl. Stay peg.
So pretty in that clear water.
Yeah.
Freaking big one, ankle back. Oh, dude. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, I was pretty happy. I was like thanking God, like, for.
the wind.
What'd I say? It's funny. I don't know. I don't even remember. Oh, here we go. I can hold her up here.
I got 17 3/4, guys. Literally my second cast. 17 3/4. This is unreal.
So sitting in good shape.
Good shape. Yeah, I was in good shape then. Feeling good. Yeah, good shape. And then I went to the school, and this is where things get real interesting. I tried different baits on. I was like, I'm not going to throw the gobies. I'm going to give them a TRD crawls, like a net head TRD crawls, because I saw some crawfish remains on a rock the day before. So I thought, well, I never saw hardly any forage. I did see some gizzard shad at one point in that little backwater area that I was telling you about, the mouth of it where it's a little stained. But you just don't see any bait fish, and I know there has to be something there, right? I did see one trout that wandered its way down there. One 9-inch trout that it did, but I see no fish. I see some bluegill every once in a while, but they're these giant ones that are on the Havasu that you hear about, these record, like these really huge ones. So
as big as the bass.
Yeah, they're like giant. So but I didn't see many of those either. So I'm like, they're obviously eat crawfish. So let me give them a crawl. Do nothing. I tried the Streaks 3.75 on a split shot rig, like a little mini Carolina rig with a little small, like 1/8 ounce bullet weight, to just let it swirl behind and look like it's dead, and that weight was stirring up the sand. I thought they're going to smash this. Nope. Nothing. I went back to the gobius in the school. I let the school rest after I fished them with that other stuff. They didn't bite. And I'm really concerned because I was banking on something coming from the school, right? And then I finally got one to bite here, and you'll see kind of how excited I was. And what I say when I get it to bite, I'm like, oh God, how'd that happen? I just actually got one to bite after all these casts. Picking a wedgie. Got to do it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that happens to.
Yeah.
Sitting and standing, it happens all day long.
Yep.
Got one. I have no idea how. But I got one. Out of the school. I guess I'll fire them up.
Yeah, I was hoping that would just get them all excited.
Yeah, they're starting to get fired up. Look at them all.
Yeah, there was a bunch of followers with this one too.
Stay on, dude.
See, there's like a bunch of them. Look at that. So I got her in. Eventually here.
I'm getting nervous.
I know, right? I was nervous when they're right there. I don't really use the net very often. So single hook baits like this, I just make sure it's into the barb. And
all right, guys, 16 on the dot.
All right, cool. So that was number 2. I was like, all right, that's pretty early still. I got here sooner than I did the day before. So I got time to figure it out now, but did not get any more of those fish to bite. So I'm like, oh man, where are my next 3 fish going to come from? I got that little cut with the stained water. I actually went in there and caught a largemouth on a spinner bait that, like, how it is when a tournament you get stressed. Like my battery died and just didn't really worry about, and I should have just plugged it back in, but I caught a nice 16.5 largemouth, which you can see on the Tourney X leaderboard. I caught actually before that I think do I have that on video? No, I don't, but I will pull this up. I've got a clip right here. I saw Jake came over there. He was in the area and he knew where I was fishing, so he wasn't bothering me, but he wanted to come over there and see what's going on. So he got some video of me catching this fish because my GoPro wasn't on, and it was pretty cool. But anyway, I was cast. So what I'm doing now is I knew I saw fish on that bank. I had a 1.5 mile stretch of bank that was on upstream and downstream of the school that I would see smallies on every so often, and some good ones. So I knew, and some big ones. I mean, like some loners that were like 19, 20 inches, and a 20-something inch largemouth too. But anyway, I was like, I'm just going to blind fish it, from long cast with that gobius and hopefully get some bites that way. Because I knew right where the school was. So I could throw there and just work it on the bottom and just let it sit in that school until they would eat it. But I don't really know where the fish on the bank are. I just know there's fish in this 1.5 mile bank. So I'm just, working it. But anyway, I caught this fish and it was like 17 1/4.
All right, just caught a 17 1/4, number 3. Sorry, GoPro wasn't running, but Jake got some of the fight with his, he was right next to me with his phone. So 17 and a quarter. Thank you, Jake, for getting some of that. Let's let it go.
And it was cool, man. Yeah, it was good timing. And he, it was actually cool, really, that he got to see a lot of, like, a few of the fish catches there.
And a quarter.
Whoops, hang on.
Number 3.
Sorry, removed from studio. You know, because he was there to learn. Like you said, he had one fish, a 16 and a half on day one. So he knew he wasn't like in the hunt for anything. So it was cool to have him kind of hang out there and watch me for a little bit and learn. So just kind of watch how it was done. I mean, you might as well learn something if you know you're not going to be in the hunt. So that was smart. And next was the largemouth I caught on a spinnerbait in that stained water. And then I ended up getting going.
So that largemouth's number 4?
This is, yep. So I got 4 now, and it's noon. Okay. So Jake, I told Jake, I'm going to zip back around and whip around and fish some of the stretch again, because the stain, there was a little bit more water running. They'd kind of turned some generators on back at the dam way up, 25 miles up or 30 up, and the water was higher today. You can see there's a little bit of a stain in the water. I know it's hard for you guys to tell that stain, but this water's a little bit more stain on this bank for about 5 feet to 10 feet out, because the higher water was pulling some of that milky stuff out of that like sand pit quarry, dredge quarry or whatever. So that was a good bank because the water is a tinge warmer and a little bit stained, which again, not much, but they can kind of ambush a little better or whatever they want to hide in it. A little bit warmer maybe. And I'm just like, this is number 5.
Get it, dude.
I'm going to win the tournament right here.
Oh, shoot, don't jump. Maybe it might be 17. Oh, shoot, she came off. No. She came off.
Oh.
So,
oh, man, that could have been like the winning fish.
That was not fun.
You're a lot more composed than I am when that happens.
Yeah. Well, like, what are you going to do, man? Just keep going, keep grinding. I got no other choice. I was like, whatever, just keep moving, keep fishing. It was noon. I could have like sat on the bank and had like a sandwich, relax. I could have like just chilled for a minute, knowing that like they would have really had to catch them. Like the guy in first would have had to get 5 again and get 5 good ones. That would have had been a very good limit. That would have been more than I had on day one, actually, if I would have caught that fish, because it was 17 easy. So didn't get it. All right, now I'm like really nervous because I only have this one little small section, you know what I mean, that I'm catching fish in. So then I get back, I let the school, I went way upstream. Mark Cisneros and the camera guys from Bassmaster took those drone shots. They met me up there, and I was just running to another waypoint, but I knew they didn't want to just get me running. They wanted to get some casting shots of me and stuff. So we had like a 15-minute photo shoot in the middle of the tournament when I'm like freaking out that I need a 5th fish. So I was like, come on.
You're better than me. I wouldn't have done it.
So,
no.
Maybe
later, guys.
Once he took the drone up, I was like, I can't just like leave. He's got this drone up to like, and I know he could follow me, but all it would just be me running. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, let me get some shots fishing, and he could get some photos. So he got some cool shots that you guys, saw some of. But then so the school rested for a good 2.5 hours probably, and then I went back to him and said, I got to get one last fish. And there were other anglers in that zone, in that area, and they were kind of working in that whole bank as well. 2 people behind me. I was like, man, I know it's been beat up all day, but I know those guys have probably left by now, and maybe they never found those fish. And anyone ever, even I saw a guy on day one that was right on those fish, and I don't know if he really found them, or he was just kind of looking at it with his motor guide and just, standing up and just looking. And he said he only caught 1 fish all day long, so he didn't do very good. And he didn't come back and launch there on day 2 either. He wasn't there. So I guess he didn't catch enough to warrant returning and didn't find them. But I am going back there. So here's what happened. I go back to the school, and that this is around 2:30, not very much time left.
What happened? So we're getting out of the wire.
Oh yeah. We're getting out of the wire. Yeah.
3 o'clock is mine's out.
3:30.
3:30. Okay.
Yeah. We started at 7:30, ended at 3:30. I got a wedgie again here at 2:30 apparently. So, or 2 o'clock. So I go back to the school, and now you can see how much more shade is on this bank now. It's definitely getting later in the day. It's not, this is kind of, time's running out. I need one more bite, and I still have not really had anything to drink or eat, because, you don't get 5. You're just like so focused on getting 5. You just don't drink. You don't eat. I guess apparently I do a photo shoot for 15 minutes, but I don't eat, I don't drink. And then finally, I've somehow got this fish to bite in the school. I don't know how.
Come on, stay on. Oh yeah, stay on, please. Oh no! God, no!
Comes off.
No, not again.
That floating
Comes
cattail
off,
was
dude.
bad luck.
Yeah, I guess so. Fish comes off. So now I'm like,
Ah.
dude, this is not my tournament, man. Like I'm not gonna win it. I might get 4th or 5th with 9 fish, but I'm not gonna win. Probably, I don't know where I'm gonna find another bite. So I went back to well, I don't have it on video, so I'll explain it, but I do have me holding it up, so I'll explain what happened. I went back to I'll work my way up again, down up that bank on that nice little stain that was coming in from that milky, and I've caught a fish in practice there. I caught a fish in day, practice. I caught a fish on a jig there, a crawfish jig, cross size, crawfish jig with the TRD Pro, or the Pro Crawls on it, not the TRD, the Pro Crawls from Z-Man. And I cut about a 1/4 inch of it off to make it fit on that finesse jig a little bit better. So I caught one there. I caught one on day 1 there. Remember the smallmouth that was right there that had that follower right at that point. Then I catch one, a largemouth there earlier in the day on a spinnerbait in that stained water. I'm like, I know fish live there. It's a little bit warmer. I'm getting a little bit more warmer water temps than the lake. So I got to go, and it's been rested now for, again, a couple hours since I caught that fish earlier there, that 16.5 inch largemouth. So I got to just soak a jig in that whole opening and all that stained water until I just get bit. That's all only hot shot I had left. So I go up there, and sure enough, man, I get bit. And I mean, I just, I was straight braid on my bait caster and my jig and crawl. And I was so ready for that bite. I mean, I just ripped this 14 and a 1/4 inch fish in so fast. And it didn't even know what hit her. I mean, she was so green when she got in the boat. She's just going crazy. And I thought she was going to flop out. So you see that stained water? See the clear meeting with the stain right there?
All right, guys, this is the biggest, smallest fish I've ever caught in my life. 14 1/4, I believe. Maybe the winning fish. We'll see, but it's 5 for me.
And as I drift, I mean, just look how that clear water is meeting that stain. Like, it's a milky stain. It's not like it's mud. See that right there?
Clear right on the rock bottom, you can see it.
Oh yeah, you can see it real good right there. My boat's kind of in the stand to the left. It's clear coming in, and there's a mud line there with that milky. And I just, just got her to eat and ripped her in. And I knew that was like the winning fish most likely. And I was just kind of broke down, was emotional. It took a lot, you just knowing now what you guys know with the Joe situation with my wife getting sick. All the planning, I almost wasn't going to go because the girls' weekend, I mean, everything, dude. I was like, how in the world did I just do this? Like, it was such a just incredible, like, God thing. I was like, I had such a good feeling about it because I always wanted to go back to that Colorado River. And people just kept saying, oh, you can't win it in the river and stuff like that. And I just don't think a lot of guys out west, they don't have a lot of rivers to fish, for bass. They don't really, know them quite as well as, and a river bass is a river bass is a river bass. You know what I mean? Like, they're the same. It doesn't really matter that I'm seeing desert, it's the river's still flowing water, and they set up the same, no matter if you're there or the Amazon or the Mississippi River, anywhere in the world, they're going to ambush predators are going to use the current very similarly. And these fish certainly did. So, figured it out somehow. It was pretty cool. So never forget it.
Yeah. You've got an impressive, you've demonstrated an impressive knowledge of those river fisheries, how they set up. You've won on rivers all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously what I love. And last thing I could think of to pull up, if you got a second, I was going to maybe try to pull up my Omnia fishing app, Omnia Pro, guys.
Yeah.
And the reason I was going to pull it up, let's see if I'm logged in or not. I'm not logged in on the internet, but maybe I can log in and make this work for us if I remember my password.
Yeah, Bailey turned me on to that last year, and I didn't appreciate what you can do with all the overlays, with the mapping. And for me, I'm not great with electronics. I've said that many times before. I need to get better at it. So for me, going out there a lot of times without it, I can actually have my phone and have an idea of what kind of depth I'm looking at.
Right.
It's not necessarily real time looking at it's not the same as looking at a fish finder, but it's nice to have an idea.
Yep.
You can do overlays with water temp, grass, wind direction. It's pretty cool what you can do with the Omnia Pro.
You can. So I actually got it up here. Let me share my screen, but first let me put on water temp. see if should pull it up here. Okay, here we go. This is like uses historical. So, but either way, this is helpful, right? So let me click on share screen. And I had a digital thermometer I use, like a kitchen thermometer. So I like to do that. But before I got to the lake, right, you can pull up the Omnia app on the Omnia Pro, and you can see that the lake, the down lake, you see I'm seeing 50, 51, 48, all this like colder water down here in the lake. And yeah, you get some pockets that have some warmer, maybe some warmer water, but I just kind of felt like there was a lot of colder water down there. And then up in the river, you're starting to see like some 59, 57. Again, this is kind of historical 61, 59. I was like, all right, on average, as you can see, on quote unquote average, the water up the river is warmer than the lake. And that's not normal always in the winter, but when you've got a dam up here from Lake Mojave, this is way out of bounds, but see the dam right here, the tail race? Right here, you've got a water that's probably coming out below the thermocline, obviously, so it's warmer. So in the summer, it's spitting out probably 55-degree water, and that's why it's an artificial trout fishery, right? And stop sharing that. You can also do other stuff, obviously, water clarity. You can do all the stuff with the tool with the Omnia Pro, which is great. But and there's so many layers you could click on, and don't have to get into all that now. But I was really, just checked it beforehand to see, like, I knew from old school understanding. It's cool that we have these new technology now. It makes it easy for everybody. But I just knew that was pumping out water like probably 55 degrees or something, because it's a trout. They stock trout there. So even during the summer, it's got to come out really cold. And then the trout will live in first probably like, I don't know if it's 15, 20, 30 miles, right, of that below that dam pretty successful even in the summer before it warms up too much and they don't want to be too far down. So, and of course, those are food. I saw some pretty big fish, in some certain areas, and I think they're eating trout. But I knew that the water coming out at 55 has a little head start in the winter on the other water in the lake, which doesn't have that influx of 55 way up there, because once it hits the environment in the desert there, it's obviously going to get cooled down. In the winter, it's pretty cold. It gets cold. Nights are around 40 degrees, and the highs were upper 60s, maybe hitting 70 one day in practice. So, and the nights are longer, right? So I'm like, okay, well, that water's got a head start. It's coming out at 50 than the water in the lake, which is not affected by that anymore. So that's why that water down there is a little cooler, but it's only like a 2-month period, I would say, where the water, maybe 2 or 2.5, something like that, where that water is warmer than the lake water. Because then it flips. Once in about another month from now, the lake water is going to get warmer. All those backwaters in that beautiful area of the gorge, they're just going to get way warmer than that clear river that's coming out colder now, still out of the bottom of Mojave. So I knew that, and it's just 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees warmer, maybe 3 than the lake was. But hey, when you're looking at a tough tournament and a cold-blooded animal like a bass, 2 or 3 degrees will matter for aggressiveness. And you saw the fish in the school were hitting my line at the surface. I mean, I probably could have threw a weightless soft plastic, just a slow sinking, and probably caught them on that. But I threw the gobius in a 1/2 ounce on day one and 3/8 on that spinning rod, that 7-1 8-pound test, so I can launch it so they couldn't see me. If you throw weightless stuff like a wacky, you got to get too close to these fish. Won't work. You're too close. You got to have something you can launch, but still look stealthy and real. So that was kind of how that all came into play, and how that I knew that water. But the Omnia Pro app could have told anybody that. If you just looked at it, you could have seen the water on average is actually warmer up in the river. I don't know why it is. If you don't know why, because it's from that dam coming out warm, it doesn't matter. The Omnia Pro, you're just going to see the temps of the temps. But I kind of knew already that it was probably going to be a little bit warmer. And
it's
it
like
worked.
the warm water discharge.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit in the winter there. So
it's a wintertime thing on the Potomac too, where not exactly the same way the water's coming out. It's like water treatment plants.
Yeah, exactly.
Pumping out water that's cooler or rather warmer. And then it does the flip in the summer, like you were saying.
Exactly.
Fish will pull to it because it's the cooler water.
Exactly. So there's
not
certain
always
times,
in play, but
right, not always in play, but certain times. And that's kind of why I went up there, and I just knew, man, if I could find them, I'm just lucky I rolled over, the flat where they were on that that bank and that shallow water just sunning themselves and stacked up. And if I don't, then I probably don't win because, I needed those fish out of the school, obviously. So it was fun, very fun. And just, I don't ever take it for granted. The anglers in this sport are so incredible. The Bassmaster Kayak Series has the best talent. And, some people probably think, oh, you got all these trophies. It's just like nothing to you. Dude, I never know when I'm going to win another one. I'm still like so shocked that I won. It's like it's so hard, dude. Just to catch 5 fish a day is hard. And then to beat all those talented anglers, like, Cayman Rasmussen was second. He's a hammer. He's always at the top nationally. He's going to fish a lot of these events. We had a former Bassmaster, like Elite 150. Well, I think it was before the Elite Series. I think it was Mark Kyle was in it. He was like 3rd or 4th place, and he lives there now. And we had local hammers fishing that lake. I mean, those guys are good. So man, beating them, I just don't ever like take it for granted one bit. It's still in shock that it actually happened. So it was cool though.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us and sharing the footage too. It's like being along with you in the kayak almost.
Yeah, man.
I really like how you shoot the footage. It's something that I think I said the exact same thing the last time I had you on, that I'm going to have to get better and actually hook up the GoPros and download the footage or upload the footage. And maybe this time I'll actually follow through on it.
Do it, man.
It is a cool look.
If you go get an Aqua battery pack, man, they're $30. They support kayak fishing. They got light kits. They got battery packs. They got batteries for your fish finder. But anyway, Aqua's great. Actually got their power kit right here in front of me. But what I would do is get one of these power kits, or they're just little battery packs. They're $30-$40. Hardwired to a GoPro. The new ones are great. And the new Heroes are even great. The $179. It doesn't have all the pro bells and whistles of the 13. You know what I mean? So you don't get too confused. Just hit record and let go. If you don't ever need the footage, that's fine. But if you do, you got it. And as we're doing with the Kayak Adventure Series, we're trying to encourage and incentivize filming to such a high level that you're almost like crazy not to film or try to film, because we got the GoPro guarantees this year where it moves your payout up to $10,000 from what it would be, or $7,500 at some events. So it's either 75 or 10. I think 4 of them, there's 7 events, and 4 of them, it's a $10,000. If you're filming with the GoPro, you can give us 2 clips from your, go to kayakadventureseries.com, continue to get information on that series. But that's all you got to do is film, get 2 of your 5 to us, and we can show it on the theater big screen, which is awesome. Because what you just said, the best part really is that we just get to see the action and feel like we're there and see the emotion and what you're going through. And then the little side part that's kind of cool is no one can question your character or integrity of what happened out there, because you got it. I'm showing these fish catches from cast to catch. So you guys know, like, this is how I'm doing it. And it's just fun to watch that stuff. We love it. We're eat up with it as anglers in the sport. And I think it's going to be the way of the future, where we can really validate our sport. And when we have an elite series for kayak fishing, it's got to be on this or it doesn't count. And it sounds crazy, but the guys who are that serious about doing it for a living, that's not hard to get a couple GoPros, even have a backup to make sure one is always running and working. And in worst case, you could use your phone, even if you really had to, if your GoPro's something happened. But when big money's on the line, like if people are trying to cheat now, what's going to happen when 25,000 is on the line at every event, or 50? I mean, it doesn't cost much to get this, to like validate the sport and your character, and give us the footage to grow the sport, to see the action. I think it's a no-brainer. But yeah, you guys, by the way, it's a kind of a plug there. Hit the Kayak Adventure Series presented by GoPro this year. We got 7 events. We got one in Virginia, south of you there in South Boston. We got one up in Susquehanna with the Native Power Hour, a joint event with them. So that's going to be huge, because you can win $1,000 every hour for their format. And then with ours, it's the normal kind of payout. So that's going to be a giant event at that one. So, and then the championship's not far in Pennsylvania also. Our I won't say championship, our finale, our broodstock, call it broodstock. So yeah, maybe we'll see some of you guys there. It's going to be fun. And yeah, a lot of filming going on, a lot of fun and action and adventure. So give us a follow if you want over there on the socials.
And Drew, you're going to be down in for the Kissimmee event here coming up?
Yeah, I'll be leaving in like a week. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Already.
I look forward to seeing you down there then.
Yeah,
and
man.
Then you're going to be back down there again with Kayak Adventure Series for the
2 weeks later, Ocala-palooza. Yep.
Ocala.
So I'm actually driving down, bringing all the stuff for the Kayak Adventure Series event down there with me on my drive. And then I'm going to leave it at Dustin Hoy from Raccoon Creek Outfitters, his house down there. He's got a second home, a little, Florida house down there in Silver Springs. And then I'm dropping it all off there, and then I'm flying back home for those 2 weeks in between, and then flying back. So my truck will be down there for a couple weeks, all that stuff. And then we will make it happen at Ocala, which has got Orange Lake, the number one ranked. I cannot talk, and I've done a lot of these. You'd think I'd do better. The number one ranked lake in the Southeast, according to Bassmaster. Then it's got like the Withlacoochee River and Lake Rousseau, which is like one of the top ranked lakes, and the Rodman Reservoir, which the elites fish, and they're not going to allow them to lock into that lake this year. So we won't be in, because they're going to be there same time we're there. We're there. They're only an hour away from us in Palatka. So here's a cool thing. Fish the Kayak Adventure Series. Our event is a Friday afternoon and Saturday, right? Just 5 fish. And then go hit the elite weigh-in on Sunday. Go visit the elites. How often will you be an hour away from an elite series weigh-in? So that's what a lot of people are going to do. They're like, dude, that's awesome. I'm going to go see the crowning moment on the St. John's when they kick off their season. So
get some autographs too.
Absolutely. So that'd be a lot of fun. So come see us at Ocala-palooza. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be a good year, man. It's already started off well for me. Obviously I can't complain. So I'm more excited now to find out where the Classic's going to be at the next one, because we don't know where the kayak championship's going to be, or we can't kind of guess where it might be, because we don't know the location for the Classic in 2026.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I always love hearing how you break stuff down, and looking forward to see you here in a few weeks.
Anytime, man. Yep. Looking forward to it. See ya.
Drew Gregory, everybody. That was fun. Drew said it, Bailey said it, and I'll echo it. I think he's one of the best strategists, if not the best strategist in the sport. Really good at putting together a game plan, doing homework in advance, and then getting out there and executing it. And he did that here when a lot of folks were struggling to get bites. He put together a couple of big limits, and it's awesome. I really appreciate him coming on and actually letting us see the footage, see those catches, see that scenery. It's one thing to look at a leaderboard, to see the numbers and kind of have an appreciation for what guys are doing, the size of fish they're catching. But it really brings it home when you can actually see the terrain, the clear water, see the fish, the followers. Really cool. So yeah, can't thank Drew enough for coming on and sharing that with us. And yeah, we're not going to jump into the other segments for this one. Hopefully we've entertained you guys with this one. And again, it's a bonus episode. We're still going to have the planned episode here in a couple days. So keep an eye out for that. I appreciate everybody for sticking with us, tuning in again, and come back and see us in a couple days. Our episodes are dropping every Thursday. And like I said at the onset, we're going to work really hard to make sure I've got some content for you every single week this year. So tune back. Thanks for listening. And until next week, remember to take a kid fishing.